Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 54 in this series on developing a survival game. This is the first video in section 5 of this series. In this section, we'll be making our dynamic weather system. In this video in particular, we'll be updating the engine to 4.26 so that we can get volumetric clouds, and we'll be updating our sky atmosphere. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors, and you too can help this channel out, and all you have to do is hit the like button down below. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon. Both help this channel out more than you can possibly realize. And if you want to take your support a bit further, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. Patreon sponsors get early access to these videos, and at upper tiers get instant access to all ongoing and completed projects here on YouTube. Alright, open up your projects and we'll make a start. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the editor. Now, we aren't going to spend too much time in the editor in the first part of this video. The only reason we're here is so we can go ahead and make a backup. So go to Files, Package Project, and Zip Up Project. And then back it up wherever you want to back it up. I'm going to be backing it up to my tutorial backup folder I have. And the reason why I'm doing a backup mostly is because I'm going to be making a copy in place or an update in place instead of doing it the proper way, which is making a copy. So I'm going to do it right there. I'm going to let this run. Now I'm going to show you an alternative version for making the backups as well. So once this is done loading, I'll show you the alternative version, and then I'll show you what I'll be doing in the actual video. All right, so my backup has finished, well, backing up. Now, the alternative version to what I'm going to do in this video is you can go to your project folder and find the U project. You can right click it and switch Unreal Engine versions and load in whatever version you want. For some reason, and there's no reason for this, don't do it that way. The way I do it, I'm gonna close out my project now, by the way. I go to the Epic Launcher, I go to my library, and I am going to pick the version 1 up from the one I currently have, so we're in 2.3, and we're going to go all the way to 2.6. Now, as I talked about in the prep video for the start of the series, the reason why we're making these updates are there are features in later versions of the engine that I actually want to use. I try to get around them in earlier versions, in 2.3, in 2.4, and 2.5 even, but they were not optimized, and the frame rates were really, really bad. They are optimized in 2.6, so we will be jumping to 2.6. Now, I say jumping. Again, we're going to do this in order. So I'm going to do 2.4 beginning. So I'm going to select 2.4. I'm going to run it. If you don't have it installed, you can click up here and add a new engine. Of course, that closed right as I was about to show you what I meant. So give me 1 second and I'll bring that back on screen. All right, I have 2.4 in the background right now, but you can click here and you can add, oh, sorry, I lied to you. You can click here and add a new version of the engine, and you can choose which one you want to install. But with 2.4 open, I am going to click more, and I'm going to select my survival tutorial 2.3 version, and you can see all my prep files and all the other stuff. I'm going to open project, and it's going to have the same message as last time. I'm going to click more options, and I'm going to convert in place. Now again, really you shouldn't be doing this unless you know that it's going to work, and we've made a backup for a reason, but I already know it's going to work. I've tested this 3 times. One of them was deleted just because it was eating up file space. So convert in place. This will take a few minutes. I'm going to pause the video here and come back when this is done. All right, so here we are in 2.4. Again, we want to go through our core folders, make sure everything is set up correctly. The only difference, again, that I could find is the one I've already noted in 2.3 in the inventory widget. Remember where it was. Oddly enough, right here in the get inventory slots. I'm not going to worry about deleting everything we've done and literally just plugging the stuff in there. You can if you want. It does technically make it more efficient because the more nodes you have, the technically less efficient the program is. There are no changes outside of this that I want to make, so go ahead, make a backup if you see fit to do so. And then once you've done so, I've already done so off camera, long before this recording actually, it's a folder I have elsewhere. Close this out and open up your launcher once again. Actually, before you do that, do one thing, hit play. Make sure it compiles. Again, it takes a bit due to the unoptimized textures we have from Epic. All right, there we go. You can't hear the sound because OBS isn't recording the sound. So the footsteps, the water, all that stuff was still there for me. I just have OBS muted. All right, go ahead and open up Epic Launcher. Again, alternative to using the launcher, you can go into the project files and change the U file. I don't know why I don't like doing that for this project, but for some reason I don't. So next up, 2.5. Now, in theory, you could stop at 2.5 and use all the features we're gonna have. However, their clouds really aren't optimized. So that's why I stopped at 2.5 with a different set of edits. Hit more again and find the 2.4 version of the tutorial project. Hit open. Again, more options, usually as I said already, and I'm going to keep repeating this over and over again. You do not want to convert in place unless you know that it will work. I have again done this numerous times with this project to check for problems and know that it does work and that we are safe to convert in place. But each time I did this, I made backup copies. So again, go ahead and convert in place, and I'll come back once it's done. Okay, and we're in the editor. One thing that really kind of tickles me about this process is that it was plugins last time and now it's project settings. I don't know what's going on there. Also, if you're seeing all this and it wasn't there before, it's under your view options, show classes, show content plugins. In fact, I'm just gonna go back down to our sort of default set there for now. Go ahead and if you have a GitHub, make sure to make backups of it. Now you should have the new modes button, which I still don't like. I really did prefer the old layout, but hey, whatever. Apparently I might be in the minority with that. With this done, again, you're gonna want to go through and double check everything, make sure everything loads. One quick way to make sure there are no errors is to hit play and make sure that everything's loading in. I gotta say, after doing the update, it does look so much better in 2.5. Like the grass is so much more realistic looking. The lighting is just so much better. But we'll talk about that in a couple of, or 2.6. We'll talk about that in a couple of moments. Technically, we could start making our updates in this version. Again, if you do want to pause here and use the 2.5 version, you can. You do not need to go to 2.6. 2.5 just is not optimized for the clouds and some of the systems we're going to use. But everything else, the Niagara emitters, and all the other settings that we're going to use are embedded within this. Again, you're going to want to go through your island and find things like this horrible tree, which in the prep file I fixed. There's actually another tree like that over there. The lavender and all that other stuff, or whatever I called it, leafy herb. And update all that stuff to actually sit in the map. That doesn't have to do with the engine version. That has to do with just the way our procedural generators are set up. And the static mesh. More the static mesh than the generators, because even Epic generators have problems with it, which is kind of funny considering it's an Epic static mesh. Anyway, that said, you do want to go through all of these, go through all your core, make sure that everything in there is set up. I have gone through this over and over again off screen. I can't show you what to fix if you're following my version as is, because there is nothing to fix between the versions. So if you are deviating from what I've done in the series, you do need to go through. I can't show you where an error might be if I don't have what you have, so I can't show you on camera, unfortunately. All right, that said, I'm going to close this out, and we're up to our last update, and I'm going to open up 2.6, and when it's loaded, we will make a change on our project. All right, once again, click more. You should know where we're going with this, and find the 2.5 project. Go ahead and open that project up. More options, convert in place. Again, usual warning, especially if you are deviating from what I've done in the series, back everything up, double check everything, then convert, but I do recommend doing a copy instead of in place. I am just doing in place because, well, one, I know it's going to work. Two, I don't really want to have 16 versions of this project floating around on my computer. I think I already have like 9, and not all of them are actually on my launcher. So, yeah. All right, once this is done, I'll be back, and we will get started with the actual update to our island. All right, so at least in the unedited version of the recording, we're 9 minutes, 30 seconds in from all those updates. I realize that is a lot of work we've done, or a lot of sitting around we've done. Again, you're going to want to go ahead and go through every single core file you have if you've made any deviations from what I've done. Again, the only one that I could find between my versions was in the inventory UI, as noted earlier in this video, and as noted in the update in the last section. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make our map pretty. But first, just for organization, I'm going to rename the landscape one as Island, just because that's bothering me. You do get this Minecraft-esque effect every so often. It will go away. Now, that is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of 2.6. The grass is still there. In fact, if I hit play, it should actually populate. There, see? But for some reason in 2.6, the landscape material thingamajigger, so if you don't remember what I'm talking about, when I say thingamajigger, the technical term, this set of code down here glitches out. Now, if you are desperate to have it back, and I kind of am, what you do is you break it, and you put it back in, and then you apply it. Or you just move one of the nodes around and hit apply. It's gonna do all the shaders again and everything else. So while this is recompiling all the shaders, what I want you to do is go through any updates you've made to find any potential final bugs before we get to making the island pretty. If you have made no updates, I'm sorry, just skip ahead to when I resume recording. All right, there we go. It's compiled, our grass is back, and we're gonna make our grass look just, well, prettier. So I mentioned that we're gonna change some things based on our weather. We are just not in the way I implied. So I'm gonna open up my lighting and my sky. In fact, actually, you know what? I'm just thinking about this. This is my skylight is going into my sky. We're closing lighting to never look at that again, at least for this video. And in sky, what we're gonna do is we're gonna find our atmospheric fog. I want you, actually no, we're gonna leave our atmospheric fog in for a moment. We are gonna delete it. If you want to delete it now, go ahead and do that. What we are going to do is delete our sky sphere, which for some reason causes the grass to vanish. Again, I really do not like 4.26. And yeah, with our sky sphere gone, I'm actually kind of confused why we still have sky. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to hide my skylight and my light source and my atmospheric fog and my height fog. There we go. Okay. I just want to make sure that we actually had the full black map. So if you want to hide everything, go for it. It's perfectly fine. If you don't want to, in your search bar on the left-hand side here under place actors, search for atmosphere. We're not going to do atmospheric fog. We are going to do sky atmosphere. Now, the location of this really, well, technically it kind of does matter. But for what we are doing, it doesn't matter. If you are creating a world-based simulation with multiple planets and things like that, yeah, that actually does kind of matter. And we'll talk about that. Actually, I won't talk about that because we're not going to touch that at all. All I'm going to do is just set this to the center of my map like usual. And I'm going to move this into my sky. And you'll notice I have a black sky. Well, it's actually no longer black. That's the funny part. It looks black, doesn't it? Well, that's space. That is actually outer space we're looking into now. And if you think I'm joking, when we get later into the video, up this to 8 and move this to about 30 and then just go up to the sky. You'll understand what I mean. We are going to adjust this, the radius of this to 1,000. Now, as we move forward, something I want to point out, and everyone who's an environmental artist who understands the nodes I am working with, or the actors I'm working with here, is gonna cringe at that I'm not using a tool that we have at our disposal. I know that there is a tool that allows you to mess with all these settings. All right, I'm gonna turn the light back on and notice that we still have no sky. Well, what's going on here? No, that's the skylight, sorry. Let me turn the light on. Oh, we do have light. Okay, so if on the off chance when you turn your light back on, you have no light, go to your light source. And in your light source, what you're going to need to find is your atmosphere setting. So all I do is I go to my search details and I type in atmosphere, and it's our atmosphere sunlight. So if your sky looks like that, when you first turn your sky on, because now we are actually looking into space again. There's no atmosphere. Turn this on. Actually, technically, there's still an atmosphere. This really is nighttime. And the way I know we have an atmosphere is if I go back to my sky atmosphere, that wasn't a joke, by the way, and I open up my atmosphere, Rayleigh, Mia, and absorption settings. This is the scattering in our atmosphere. That's no atmosphere. And that clearly is more space-like. You can see that the light isn't being absorbed, and it's doing some weird things to the island. Let's just undo that, because that was painful to look at, actually. All right, now, if you try to build your lighting at this point, you're gonna get a warning telling you, hey, why do you have atmospheric fog? The sky atmosphere does it for you. In fact, if you try to drag in atmospheric fog, you get this warning saying that you use sky atmosphere and you shouldn't have both in here. So what we're gonna do at this stage is delete. We're gonna just turn this on. We're gonna delete, see, turn it on, we get that error. I'm gonna delete my atmospheric fog. I'm gonna turn back on my height fog. And actually, before I do that, what I wanna show you, and this is why we're doing this in this very weird roundabout way, is I'm gonna move out to the water just a bit. I'm gonna hit G, which gets rid of all the game stuff, and then I'm gonna hit the Control and L key, and it brings up this little thing, and I can move the light. And hey, we have this pretty little sunset, we have changing lighting, and we have a little sunset. Now, The other thing to be mindful of, if you did not update from sorry, I'm just gonna set this actor back to 0, -45 by 0. So we have our morning sunlight. If you did not update to 2.6 and you're in anything earlier than 2.6, your lighting based on your skylight will not update correctly. So the next thing we're going to do is go to our skylight and set it so that it will update correctly. Let's just turn this on. And let me just move the lighting here. It looks like it is, but it really isn't, because that's just the editor pre-compiling it. In gameplay, it won't update correctly. Again, I'm just going to reset my light back to my default settings. So what we need to do is in our skylight, under light, find real-time capture and set that to true. Now, this is one of the major optimization features in 2.6 that does not exist in earlier versions. Don't worry if you're using an earlier version, I will show you how to work around that issue. All right, we're going to leave everything else as is. Not going to update the color like I originally planned to. That was one of the things I mentioned earlier, where you're going to leave it on that soft sort of glow. If you really want, technically this is additive. No, it's not additive. The other ones are additive. You could change the color, but let's do that elsewhere. What I want to do is I want to just look at something for a moment here. That was the wrong key. I want to hit Control L again. I'm just going to lower that. Well, we have that nice little color effect there, right? I'm not going to reset it back to its normal spot. I'm going to turn my exponential height fog on though, and then I'm going to lower it. And our scattering, well, changes. We have that nice little God ray effect there, but the scattering is off. So we need to fix the scattering for our exponential height fog. So what we need to do is, again, as I said, fix up the scattering. And there's a few things we have to do, but before we do that, I just want to walk through a few other parts. Back in our sky atmosphere, our ground radius is how big our planet is. Again, this is treating it as if there's an actual atmosphere around a planet. The size does matter. Less so for us because, well, yeah, we're not a planet. Our Rayleigh is the atmospheric gases. Our Maya, how you say that, is our smoke, water droplets. It's the reflection and scattering of light. So it creates a dustier effect at higher settings. So we have a very high dusty setting there. Be a nice dust storm actually effect, to be fair. Below that back down. And then our absorption here is our ozone. How thick is our ozone? Get a nice little purple effect. You can also change the colors. Now remember, with absorption and things like this, that if you want certain effects, well, it's not the colors you're expecting them to be. Like if you want this to be bluer, you're not going to increase the blue. Notice how that went green. I mean, if I lower this to 0, and then raise this up, we get a yellow effect. It's absorbing all the blue and none of the red and green. That's what's going on here. In fact, I've included a document on the setup of this from Epic. It's not the best document in the world, but it does walk you through the settings in terms of what they do and different effects. And there's some nice little sliders you can play with on the document as well. So what we need to do is we need to have these systems work together. And again, there's an extra node you can put in, or an extra tool you can use to do this. But before we do that even, we'd have to make one more change. And what we need to do is we need to enable the ability for our height fog to be affected by our sky atmosphere. So we need to go to our project settings, I believe. And I always forget if it's project settings, but I'm gonna start here and I'm gonna search for height fog. Yep, it's project settings. And we want shader permutation reduction. Support sky atmosphere affecting height fog. Mark this as true and go ahead and restart your editor. I'll see you all in a moment. And here we are back yet again in the editor. And we have this really kind of weird misty environment. In fact, our scattering is a bit off, so we need to fix that. So if I hit Control L for a moment, just to hit G first to get rid of those extra lines, and hit L, you can see we actually have the scattering, but something just seems wrong, right? Well, it's because in our exponential height fog, our value here and our value, well, all our values are additive. What we need to do is we actually need to change these to E black. And suddenly the lighting is a little bit better. We have to change the other ones first. So if we do this, the scattering just feels a little bit better, right? Okay, we still have some weird from the indirect scattering. So we're gonna go back to setting that to black. And notice the effects it has as we go through. That's why I was doing that slowly so you could see the effects. And now the scattering is just better. We have these nice lighting effects and the world just somehow feels more real. And if you go down to the grass, in fact, actually, I'm not sure if we have to build lighting first. The grass responds better to this lighting. It feels better somehow as well. All right, I do want to change our fall off. Actually, we might leave it here. Other option is 0.01. Kind of like to back at 0.025. It's a bit foggy, but it's not a bad setting. Next, and we're not going to really be doing a tutorial on this stage. We'll do this towards the end. We're going to add a post-processing volume. I'm just going to drop this up there. I am going to center this, and I'm going to move this one into my lighting. And in my post-processing volume, I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom here, and I am going to look for infinite extent unbound and mark that as true. I am then going to find, and I'm going to actually search for this one, my lens brightness settings, and I'm going to set this to a minimum of 3. Notice it got darker, and a maximum of 6. Now, one thing that I find particularly annoying about the atmosphere is actually how dark it makes things in general in the atmosphere itself. And if I get rid of that search, one of the things you can do to change that is you can go down to your sky luminance factor, and you can start upping these. I like values of 5. I do like that effect. Now, there's a small problem with that value. Let me just move the sun, and hopefully this will be visible in this version. Oh, well, okay, we can't see it by moving the sun that way. I am going to return this back to 1 for now. What the issue is that things like the water become irradiated. They glow at night, and I do mean they glow. They glow in darkness as well. All right, so our sky atmosphere is set up. We have a planet radius. I'm going to change the height, by the way, to 200. This will play a role with our clouds and how the light scatters down the road. I'm going to leave our Rayleigh as is. I'm going to leave our Mia as is. Our absorption, I'm going to leave as is. Again, I might say change the art direction. I, again, really do like the value of 5 on there. Notice we still have our God rays. Let's go through our lights, make sure that we've got all the changings we're going to do here in our light source. So, we do have to make some changes to our light source still, actually. So we have our luminance, which is still at 10. We're not changing the color. Don't worry about the source angle. Don't worry about this one yet. We still have effect world. We still have cast shadows. So that's not changing. We still have all these other lovely settings under here. We still have our dynamic shadows, our ray tracing if you want it. We want it to be visible. We still have our 2 versions of God rays, so one that darkens the map and one that lightens the map. So we get different effects for our God rays. And now what we need to do is go down to our atmosphere and cloud settings here. And this can be a bit intensive, so if it is slowing down your machine a fair amount, just leave this true. We need to cast shadows on clouds. We're not going to see an effect because we have no clouds. Notice there are no clouds. We are going to cast shadow on atmosphere. And again, this, if you can have one of these 3 active, you want cast shadows. You definitely need sunlight because, yeah. All right, we want that, and this is the optional one that we definitely want. If you have to get rid of one, get rid of this, and we want cast cloud shadows. Again, in terms of priority, well, this has to be there. This is top priority. The last one here is second priority, or the next priority up or down, and then this is the lowest priority on shadows on atmosphere. All right, as for exponential height fog, let's just make sure we've made all our changes there. For exponential height fog, if you really want, I would say go to as low as 0.01. We are going to leave the fall off as is. We actually aren't going to use the secondary fog data like I thought, so if you want to play around with it, find a sort of default setting you like, go for it. We will be using the primary fog settings for our weather system. Make sure your indirect scattering is black, because again, we're working with additives. In scattering, we don't actually use this, so it's fine. Again, make sure your directional in scattering is set to black, that you have this marked as volumetric fog. We've already done that. This is for our God rays and for our diffusion across the atmosphere, the light scattering. Again, for the emissive, it's additive. We're leaving this at 0.5, and I believe I've made no other changes here. For our skylight, all right, again, the key thing is that the real-time capture is in fact on. Everything else, you can choose whatever values you like here. That is up to you. Should remain the same. Now, one final thing that we're going to do, and this is just so that we can have a sort of pretty little thing to look at, is we're going to go back to our place actors here. We're going to search for volumetric, and then we're going to take our volumetric cloud. And look, hey, we have clouds. They're a bit pixelated. These are the default textures. If for some reason you're not seeing the default material here under Volumetric Cloud, then what you could do is you can go to engine content, I believe, and let me just make sure it is engine content. Yeah, it's engine content, engine sky, Volumetric Clouds. Find it in there and then drag and drop it in there. We will not be using this, by the way. This is just a cute little placeholder for us. We will need some parts of it, but notice now the lighting on the map just has a little bit more of that realistic feel. So that takes us through the setup for what we'll be doing in this part of the tutorial series. Just going to quickly save everything, close it out, kind of give it the Minecraft effect I can see in the background as I try to get rid of that plugin thing, and I'm going to hit play. Also, I had to rebuild the lighting, but I'll be doing that between the recording videos. As always, this series has been brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Hanas, Rian, Connor, and 1Vault10. If you want to be here as we set up our dynamic weather system so that we have rain, lightning, the sound effects, wind, changing cloud particles, and a day-night cycle, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon. Again, welcome to section 5 of this tutorial series, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure to hit that like button down below. And also, feel free to join our community on Discord. All of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.